Welcome, busy gamers. We just came off the first weekend beta test for Diablo 4, and I spent a bunch of time with it, primarily playing as the Sorcerer class, as well as dabbling slightly with a melee build for the Rogue. Now with Sorcerer, I reached the beta level cap, and I was able to experience a wide range of dungeons, quests, and test out some of the legendary gear. Unfortunately though, due to timing, I did miss the scheduled world boss fights, so I can't really speak to those. Now, because this is a beta test and we're only seeing the first act and 25 levels, we've got to take this into account just to contextualize the overall experience, as a lot of additional features are going to be locked behind late or in-game content, such as Paragon levels and season play. In addition, I found that performance for me was poor. There were frequent disconnects and odd lag during events, so I couldn't immerse myself as much as I would have liked. But without further ado, here are my impressions from the first weekend. So let's go ahead and start with the story. Overall, what I think we got of the story was quite good. The first section of the story, where you're essentially a traveling adventurer who takes on a job and then gets tricked into something by the townspeople, is pretty compelling. It's straightforward, but it's solid. And unfortunately, it didn't really fall off for me until we arrived in the first main town. Now, here I felt like the main story was lost a bit, as you're suddenly thrown a bunch of side quests and new mechanics that pulled you away. This isn't to say the remainder of the act was bad, but it was less focused. I really enjoyed the way they did the cutscenes for the story as well. They weren't what I typically expect from Blizzard in the form of a few long, elaborate movie-style scenes, but instead they often focused on shorter cuts that feature your character, but are less graphically intensive and cinematic in nature. Once the game fully releases, I also expect some more of the big showstopper-style cutscenes to be added, but for now, what they have is good. So let's discuss the MMO of it all. I've seen a lot of people referring to Diablo 4 as an MMO instead of an ARPG, and I agree. All the elements you see in an MMO outside of raiding do exist in this version of Diablo. Even the first beta, the town hubs had populations to them, and I found that having others around actually improved my overall experience. Now, I'm an MMO player overall, but seeing others running around the map and joining in events together made the game feel a lot more alive, and it was also interesting to be able to quickly and easily team up, help out a fellow player. Now, I also never found that it negatively impacted my game or progression when other people were around. It just never bothered me, but your mileage may vary here. Now, I'm not certain that some of these feels go towards Diablo's spirit, as with an MMO you typically have a large degree of love for your character, you stick with it forever, and in Diablo, I'm always playing a new character for a new season, and I'm often playing a hardcore character. Don't get me wrong, I care about those characters, but not in the same way I do in MMO, where I might have it for one character for the life of the game. Now, being an ARPG, the combat and the skills are going to make and break the game, and overall, the good news for me here is the skills have a solid variety, and every skill that I tried felt unique and impactful. Even your basic skills felt really viable instead of something you only really used when you depleted all your mana or your resource pool. Now, the only downside I'd really note here is where while the skills felt like they were impactful, they also felt like they were on overly long cooldowns. Honestly, I just felt I couldn't really get use out of them near as often as I wanted. This is likely something that they're going to fix in later stages, because there's going to be cooldown reduction gear. I've seen some of that already, or maybe there will be Paragon benefits that fix that as well. But for now, it did feel just a little bit slow, but I don't feel like it felt clunky. We can't talk about skills and combat without also touching on the skill tree though, and this one was one I struggled with. Now, for my channel, I think the variety of skills was fine. I think the skill tree, though, was lackluster. It had very few overall options when modifying your skills, and I think that going for accessibility here is really where they were headed. So for this channel, we're efficient, we're quick gamers that are going to jump in and out. I think most of my listeners are going to care about the accessibility to that. But it's probably also going to turn off some more hardcore ARPG fans, and because I played these back when I did have a lot more time, there are moments where I wish it was a bit more deep. It should be noted, though, that the Paragon system is an additional skill tree as well, so that probably will eliminate the concern for in-game players, but I really hate to see or speculate on it too much until we actually have it in front of us. Now, something else that stood out to me while I was playing was the map completion type activities that were included. This really, really works for my brain. And I'm really only used to seeing this in games like Guild Wars 2, but I think it's a great addition here. It allows you to track and tick off things like waypoints, quests, hidden collectibles, or dungeons, in addition to the other things that exist in the game like hidden cellars or live events. Now, I found it often gave me a goal, and it allowed me to alternate between goals while still progressing my character, which felt like I got a good sense of progress but didn't have to grind just doing the exact same thing over and over again. And overall, I think this is great. I think my only worry for this particular thing is how it's going to hold up when playing alternate characters. So once seasons start, if there are the exact same statues, etc. out in the world to collect, collecting them could easily become tedious or a chore instead of the fun exploration they will be initially. Everybody's got that honeymoon phase with the game, and all of those things will be fun at first glance, but might not be fun the 18th time you do them. So overall, my experience with the beta was a positive one. I'd likely rate the game fairly highly if it continues this type of play into later stages of the game. I enjoyed the combat, the skills, the visuals, the graphics, and although some of the content is likely slightly too dark for my taste, my main concerns really only center around the in-game and the replayability of the content. Even in my short time playing, I felt like the cellars, which I think are kind of mini dungeons, they were all the same, even though I believe a game mechanic actually gives you the impression they're going to be unique. And when I say they were the same, they all had the exact same layout to them, and really it was either go downstairs, find an elite, go downstairs, find a bunch of trash mobs, or go downstairs and find really nothing. All the dungeons also seem to be built around 4 or 6 core layouts with minor changes to the scenery, and since games like this can really burn out if you don't have enough variety, that is likely the thing to watch the most as we get our hands on full copies of the game. That's going to be my initial impressions for Diablo 4, so thank you all very much for sticking with me, and have a great time gaming.